Cool. Are you good?
Yes.
Are we started?
Yeah.
Is that what that means? Yeah. Perfect. Okay. Hey guys, thanks for coming and checking this out. We're the Marine Fisheries Lab at Mississippi State University. My name's Emily. This is Matt, Amanda, and we've got Jenny and Sierra hanging out here. So we're over in the Coastal Research Extension Center in Biloxi. So we're here to show you guys some of the cool shark species that we get here in the Gulf. Our fishing gear that we usually use is called a bottom long line. You guys have the, can you grab the Ganjin? Yeah, so it's a commercial style gear. We set out 100 of these Ganjins, and that's how we can catch our different sharks and rays in the area here.
Hang on, before you get too far, we're good.
Oh, we're good? Okay. So if you guys ever do any fishing, you know how thin your fishing line is? This is our fishing line. So we mean business. And we've got these big hooks here. We've got these 15-aught circle hooks. And that's so we can help catch things like different sharks and other big fish in the Gulf of Mexico. So that's a little bit about us and our background. We're going to walk you guys through this blacktip shark here. We're going to walk through some external anatomy and look at it internally. You look very excited, which is very exciting for me. And Matt's also going to, at the same time, open up a ray. So you guys can compare what a shark and a ray look like. Because does everybody know that they're related? So there's not a single bone in either of their bodies, right? They're completely made out of cartilage, like your nose and your ears. So they're, yeah, exactly. So they're like cousins. So it's interesting to compare that anatomy. So like I said, this is a blacktip shark. This is our second most common shark we get here in the Gulf of Mexico. This is not fully grown. When they're fully grown, they're about my height or even a little bit taller. A lot of times people catch these off the pier, so we thought it'd be a cool thing to show you guys the internal anatomy of one right here. We are very creative when we name things, so it's called a blacktip shark because it's got black tips on its fins. Do we have the spinner? That's okay. So there's another shark species that looks similar to that. It's called a spinner shark. It spins out of the water. It's got a longer nose. But this is a blacktip shark. It's kind of blunt, a little bit of a blunt nose here and then bulkier. It's got this cool kind of white-gray stripe right here you can see. And can you guys see right here and maybe on there? There's this little kind of dry patch here. This is a species-specific parasite. So on their dorsal patch, we call it. So we know, using all of those identifiers, that this is a blacktip shark. A blacktip shark is in the family Carcharinidae, and the reason we know that, or the indicator of those guys, is this thing here called a nictitating membrane. As my face just got in the way. So you can think of it as their eyelid coming up and covering it. Do you see that there? See how that covers that? So when they feed, it's there to protect its eye. Something like a mako or a great white will actually just roll its eye in the back of the head. So this is one of the characteristics we use of a Carcharinidae shark, which are very common here in the Gulf of Mexico. Can anybody tell me what this is right here? The dorsal fin, yep. What about this guy? Second dorsal fin, very good. And cool shapes. What about these fins right here? These ones. Pec fins, yeah. These are called their pelvic fins. They've got an anal fin down here, and this is the caudal fin, or the tail.
Is that a hook on the white right there?
No, just a little piece of trash. And so Matt can show you the difference on the ray, too, and what those fins look like for the ray.
Sure. So I'll start here. This is a smooth butterfly ray. Butterfly ray because it kind of looks like a butterfly. Smooth because it actually doesn't have a sting like your typical stingray. Emily was mentioning some differences. One big difference is it's dorso-ventrally flattened, kind of just means top and bottom flattened. And that's generally the case with rays versus sharks. In addition, rays have their gills on the bottom, whereas sharks have the gills on the side. And that's because most rays lay on the bottom, and they don't have that big surface area of the side since they are flattened. But to get water of their gills, since sharks can just swim with their mouth open, they have these spiracles, or these holes back here. Sometimes people think that's the eyes of the stingray, but these are actually what they use to pump water in, so you can almost think of it as kind of like their nose. They also have these very large pectoral fins. As you can see, compared to a shark's pectoral fins, they are much larger relative to the body side. They also have a very underdeveloped tail, so they really lack a true caudal fin like sharks do.
So that tail fin we just talked about.
So where are its eyes? If those aren't its eyes?
It's right behind, it's right in front of them actually, so the eyes are right up here, and then the spiracles are right there.
Who here has heard of sharks having a sixth sense? Yeah? So I'll show you what that looks like on a shark.
Well, I can't really see it.
Can you bring that a little bit closer?
Oh, sorry.
Sorry for
Yes, I
the
got
blood
it.
bath here. So you see all these little dots on his nose? Can you see all those? What the focus there? Hold it steady. Yeah, can you see all those little dots right there? And if I squeeze it, can you see that jelly pops out of it? So it's a conductive, no, not you, ooh, it's cool. So it's got this conductive jelly that runs all the way along its body. So it can basically pick up electro senses in the water given off by its prey. So things like fish breathing out their gills, using the restroom, all those sort of things this animal can pick up and be like, oh, I think my prey is right over there. So that's their sixth sense. And you can kind of see it a little bit in the ray. It's a little bit more difficult. You want to point out? Yeah, this guy's tiny, so. Anyway. Alright. So like Matt was mentioning, the gills of a stingray are on the underside. The gills of our sharks are right here. What else? Anything else externally?
External sex.
Yeah, very good. What's your head? Okay, so this is great. I've got a female shark, and Matt's got a male ray. And how we can tell is if you look, you can see these little appendages right here. These are called claspers. So these are what they'll actually use to reproduce. And if you look right here on this shark, there's nothing there, meaning that she's a female. So she doesn't need those extra appendages there. When sharks mate, they will actually, the males will grab the females with their mouths and hold on, which is why females have thicker skin, as most of us know. So, all right. They're sick of my jokes, but it's fine. We work together. All right, anything else before I open this guy up? All right. So, if you guys ever do a dissection, you want to do nice, thin, shallow cuts. It's better to have to go back and kind of recut later than accidentally puncture your internal anatomy.
That sounds weird, cutting it open.
It does sound weird cutting it open. And you can hear like that. That's because their skin is made up of tiny, tiny, tiny little teeth called dermal denticles. So you can hear that rough sandpaper-like feeling. And when I'm cutting through, it also means that I'm likely dulling my blade because that is so rough. Again, we said there's no bones, so even though it sounds like I'm cutting through bone, I'm actually cutting through cartilage.
Oh, wow.
This right here is called the pectoral girdle.
All
Alright,
Oh, wow.
so we'll go ahead and open them up. This guy's a little frozen, which is just what we want. And at the same time, Matt's also going to open up the body cavity of the ray, and we're going to try to kind of go back and forth to compare the two. Did you say it's so cute? It is cute. So, cutting through all this white muscle tissue here to open it up to the body cavity. It's the gastroperitoneal cavity, we call it. So I'll go ahead and open that up, just like that.
That doesn't look that bad.
You're right.
I thought it was gonna be like really bad and gross. It's not.
It's not gross. It's fantastic and really, really cool. So the first thing when you open up a shark is you can see this whole big organ right here that's taking up most of the body cavity. Fish like red snapper and red drum, they've got a swim bladder. So that's what helps keep them afloat. Sharks don't have that, and neither do rays. So instead they've got this really big, fatty liver filled with lipids. And that's what helps keep them afloat. So if you think about something that needs to keep this big body afloat, it probably also needs to be pretty big. So it takes up the majority of their body cavity. And there's Matt's got his ray there to compare.
What are the rib things?
So that's the first thing. We'll walk through all these cool things here. Not you, ooh, it's so cool. So it's a tri-lobe liver, so meaning it's got 3 lobes. So this is one lobe, this is a second lobe, and then we've kind of got this fleshy part here that we call a third lobe. So I want you guys to be thinking about how much space does that liver take up in both of these animals, and what do they have to do with their other organs to maximize the remaining space they've got in there. So, the first thing, you guys see this nice green thing right here?
Yeah.
This is their gallbladder. Let me know if I get in the way of the camera there or poke you accidentally. So if I open this up, see all that nice bright green bile coming out?
Yeah.
That's what helps digest things in the stomach. So likely if there's a lot of bile, there's probably not too many things in the stomach because they haven't had to push it through to digest it. Right, they're starving. And if you think about our gear type, it's a hook with a bait on it. So a shark that's full isn't gonna bite that hook, but if it's hungry, it will. So as trophic ecologists and scientists, we're trying to look at their stomach contents. That's something we have to keep in mind. So, enough with that. Let's move down into the rest of the digestive tract. They have kind of well, this is their stomach here, right? This big stomach, and I'll open it up in a minute. Maybe they've got some goodies in there, we'll see. This red thing here is called their spleen. That's what cleans and filters their blood, just like in a human. All of this tissue that's holding everything together, that's called mesentery.
It's really stinky.
It's not stinky. It's delightful.
No, it's
Smell
smell
science.
it.
Okay. Can you guys see this Y-shaped organ right here? That's their pancreas. So it's embedded in what we call the mesentery. So the food will get eaten, it'll travel through the esophagus, down into the stomach, all through here, and into their small intestine. And in this particular group of sharks, it's called their scroll valve. And I'll show you why. If I open it up, it's a little frozen.
It's the liver.
So this is their small intestine, scroll valve. If I open it up, it's unraveling like a scroll, more or less. See how it kind of unraveled? It's still a little frozen, but you get the point of how much space it takes up when it's tightly coiled, and then when you open it up, how much surface area is actually there to be able to absorb nutrients. And Matt will show you what a spiral valve will look like in a stingray. So it's actually different.
Yeah, so I'll hold this up. So it's called a spiral valve because it's almost actually like a spiral staircase. So I don't know if you guys, it's kind of hard to see. You can see it kind of better on this side, is that you can actually see there's basically rows. So basically anytime it eats anything, instead of just kind of going right through the intestine, it goes down. Again, think of maybe like a big spinny water tube. And that way it can digest the most amount of food possible.
So, very cool. And so you can see the difference of these animals that are related, but still, even within their bodies, the structures can be a little bit different depending on what they need. So a cool thing in this female shark, we'll just quickly not get too much into the birds and the bees, but we're going to talk about the reproductive tract for just a minute. So the size of this shark, and given what we know about the biology of this animal, it's not mature. So if she were more mature, she'd have these organs that are taking up a good part of her body. One of the coolest things I think about sharks, and the females in the audience can also agree or find interesting, I think, is they actually have paired uteri. So they have basically two wombs in their body. They have multiple different modes of reproduction, some where they have a placental connection, just like we do as humans, some where they eat their siblings in the womb, which is crazy cool. So when I'm looking at the internal anatomy of this shark, I'm looking and saying, okay, this is her left uterus here, and this is her right. So they're very undeveloped, that's why they kind of look unexciting. See if there's anything in the ray, probably nothing, okay. That's cool, we'll move along from something more exciting. Oh, that is cool. So in comparison, this is a male, right? Let me see if I can look this up a little bit. Yeah. So these are the testes of the male. They produce the sperm that's used for reproduction, and it goes and it's stored in this seminal vesicle here, this white part here. So presumably this fish is mature, so that's pretty cool. So compare how big this stingray can get when it's considered fully grown versus the shark that isn't even close.
Is it heavy?
Not heavy. So anyway, let's see what's in the stomach, yeah? first stomach. Sorry.
There is nothing in the right stomach.
Nothing in the ray stomach. I think I've got a lot of ice in here. That's actually just ice. It's not exciting. So, unfortunately, just because of the freezing process, all of this is ice. It's not very exciting. But what is exciting and cool, and if you can see that, they've got all these little lines in that stomach. That's called rugae. So again, maximizing the space they have left to be able to absorb nutrients. And if we really wanted to look at the stomach contents of this animal, we'd go all the way to the very end of the stomach and hope we'd find hard parts like bone or fish eye lenses that are a little bit harder to digest. But I think we're just out of luck on this fish. But again, we kind of expect that if our fish has to be hungry to bite the line. It might have been stressed at the time, so that's fine. All right, let's see. I don't know if you guys, can you move this thing around here and see? Can you guys see this red right here? Uh-oh. Uh-oh.
What red?
Oh, and I actually, that was not the uterus, but that's fine. So, this is a kidney right here. These are their kidneys, this nice red in the back behind their backbone. And what's cool is that I actually misspoke earlier where I pointed out that those were the uteri. They were actually what's called the epigonal organ. And these tiny little lines here are the totally undeveloped uteri of this animal. This is the oviducal gland. It's where eggs can get stored and then shifted down here had she been pregnant. But she's not. So, as scientists, if we collect these animals and we find that they die of natural causes, which is the case of this animal when we caught it, we want to sample everything we can when we collect it. So, if we were on the boat, we would do the same thing. I'm going to take a muscle sample, and we can use that to look at the chemical makeup of their diet.
This is the
The
kidney.
green stuff is the bile. Do I have, I'll put it, yep. So we're collecting a muscle sample there. I'm also going to take out their vertebra. So we can use that to age them. And the way we do that is every single individual vertebra, which we've got some clean ones that we'll pass around here, if we cross-section them, so meaning we cut them in half, and we look at them under a microscope, they look like tree rings. So we can use them to actually estimate how old this fish was, the shark was, how old it was at this length, and get a better idea about their biology and life expectancy. So that's what we'll do here. We'll take out part of their vertebra, and hopefully we've got some clean ones that you guys can see. Yeah, so see what Sierra's got here? Once we clean this up, that's what that'll look like. Oh, it's still frozen. There we go. That's a great question.
So
I didn't know the answer. I didn't know y'all.
probably used to. So the reason why you can age a lot of hard parts is because things kind of almost like a growing season where in the summer they're eating a lot and then the winter they're eating less. So probably back in the day they would, but since we don't really ever have a shortage of food, it'd probably be less likely to see that with humans. Maybe it fades up, but it happens more often when there's a specific breeding season, or again, when there's less food in the winter and they eat less.
Oh, very good question. So this is basically just kind of a band of vertebra. And so if you can see, this middle part here is that vertebra, so that's what we were just talking about to use the age. This top part here is where the spinal cord runs along it, and this little thing down here is their vein. So if we want to take blood from this animal, we're going for that tiny vein right there. This is a sample we'll take. I'll show you kind of a better angle from the tail, actually.
Facebook and I clicked it and I started live streaming over. She thought it was me.
You guys are in the splash zone. No promises were made. So, if you look at this, this is a cross-section of the different muscle bundles that are in the fish. This white muscle is used for fast bursts of swimming, so trying to track down the prey, and this red muscle is used A, for just regular swimming around, and B, for thermoregulation, so keeping them warm. So if this was a cold-bodied shark that lived in the deeper, colder waters, that red muscle would be more along the vertebra to help keep it warmer. But again, oh, you guys are all right here. So this is the vertebra we just pointed out. That's where the spinal cord goes, and that's where the caudal vein runs. Plus, if you guys touch it, their muscles are super tightly packed. You guys can touch it if you want. Well, maybe ask your parents, I don't know.
Just wash your hands after.
And Matt's got some comparative stuff there.
So you can see here's actually the muscle on a butterfly ray. You can actually see they have a structure, so again, cartilage at the base, and you can see they actually have more muscle on the top of their body than the bottom, which makes sense because they use that muscle to push down the water when they swim.
Okay, you want to compare how similar those fins look?
And you can see they're much different. If you look at the pectoral fin of a shark versus the pectoral fin of the ray has a lot more muscle in it because the shark is using its pectoral fins more to steer, not to really go forward because it has that big tail. But rays need all that muscle because they use their pectoral fins to actually propel themselves forward.
Yeah, exactly. There's that black tip. This is one of my favorite things to show people, and I actually just cut right through it. This is their heart. Sharks have hearts. And it's a 3-chambered heart. Ooh, that's a ray heart. Look how cute those are. So see that heart, the heart comparison there of a blacktip versus a smooth butterfly ray. Isn't that cool? See, it's kind of this triangular structure. Matt, can you show that ray one?
Much smaller.
Yeah. Doesn't mean that it loves any less. Alright, so these right here are the gill rakers. So these are the gills, they're nice and feathery. That's what helps absorb the oxygen
Do that on the ray
when the water flows.
These are the gill rays. These are the gills.
I'm gonna go ahead and pull out the jaws, because that's the cool part, right? One of the cool parts. Anything else we can, is there ray there? Maybe talk about different sized males. So, you see here how that jaw, maybe you don't. Sorry, I'm getting used to this whole camera business. So, this is cartilage right here, their jaw. I'm pulling it away from all the different muscle in there. And it might sound like I'm cutting through jaw. I'm cutting through the same structure, right? It's still cartilage. But I'm actually going to be cutting through the gills here in just a second.
Matt wins.
How do they not have
Look at the size of his fin.
So before Emily's working on hers, you can see how small the jaws are for this ray. And actually they don't really have teeth. They kind of almost have like a sandpaper. So they don't, what's cool about this ray is, even though it's missing its pectoral fin, is that they actually eat fish. And then rather than actually biting fish like the blacktip, they actually swallow fish whole. So they ambush fish, they actually basically smack the fish with their pectoral fins, and that stuns the fish, and then they just swallow it whole. So they don't really need teeth to bite the fish because they're swallowing them whole. And actually, we saw this females of this species can grow to be twice as large as the males, and we actually found that females actually eat larger fish species than males, and that relative to the total length, so the nose to the bottom, these rays can eat fish at about 2/3 the length. So they eat very big fish, which is pretty unusual for a ray, even though it's much more common in sharks.
We've got some clean jaws over there too that we can show you from some similar species. So Sierra, do you mind holding those up? So Sierra's got 2 different pairs of jaws from 2 different rays. And Matt can tell you a little bit about them and their dietary preferences. So what do they like to eat?
So how if you just want to show it forward, Sarah, it might be easier. So we have this one on the right is actually a cow nose jaw, and what's cool about those is when you spin that around, if you see there's actually plates on it. So cow nose rays are really cool because they eat clams. And literally what they do is with those plates, they crush the clam. So they'll find a little clam, put it in its mouth, and literally crush it so they can consume it. Those other ones are from a southern stingray, and they eat things more like shrimp. So while their teeth are hard, they're not really sharp like a shark, they can still crush things, but they eat more smaller things like shrimp, so they don't really need to crush things like the actual cow nose ray. What was that?
How do they not have bones?
It's cartilage, so now kind of like your nose isn't as hard as like in your ears. They have small little bones that are kind of like bendy. That's what they have. So there's some calcium, so they look like bones and they function like bones, but they're not true bones like ours, because they're not quite as hard. They're softer and they're lighter and they can bend more.
Yeah. So this is the jaw from that blacktip shark. I'll just go ahead and hold it up. We've got some clean ones right there. So you can see we put a lot of love and time and effort to make this look like that. The cool thing about these when I pull them out, a big difference, is if you see, will you flip it around real quick? Yeah, see all those rows and rows and rows of teeth? That's because sharks basically replace their teeth every time they eat. It helps make them a strong predator. If you look at, exactly, it was covered with gum right here. So if you look at it when we pull it out, it actually has that protective layer that those new teeth kind of just push out. And in fact, that's really cool. You can kind of see that new tooth, right where my finger is, was just about to go in and replace that tooth. So it's pushing through right there. That's cool. I don't know. Okay. So, if you guys are gentle, you can touch these. One thing, I always like to orient people around the shark jaw. If you see these two nubs up here, that's a scientific term, nub. These are called the orbital processes. So this is what adheres the jaw to the skull. So if you ever see some jaws, you know that these nubs up here are the top. So never take a picture like that, because now you guys know. Alright, you can touch those if you're gentle.
Careful, but careful.
Another
Guys are still
cool
very
thing?
sharp, so just be careful.
Sharks have tongues. See that tongue right there? That's the tongue. So they're made out of the exact same structure as their skin. Yeah, see that? If you guys are careful, you can touch it right in there too if you want to. It feels just like their skin. It's made out of tiny, tiny, tiny little teeth. Doesn't that feel funny? Being a tongue depressor here. Alright, let's go ahead and look at the eye.
Because we need to take samples from it and we want to show everyone the internal anatomy. So what a shark looks like on the inside.
Oh, look at this.
Yeah.
So the shark was already dead, so we're just using a fake sample to show you.
You just got licked by a dead shark.
Yeah, it was on one of the hooks, and I think there wasn't much water in the water for them to breathe over their gills, so we already passed. We'll take samples of us from them. Yeah, so that one's about the new teeth that's about to go in.
Alright.
That's why it's bent like that.
So, this is what that shark eyes like. Actually, some different species have different colors around their eyes. So, a fine tooth or might have more of a blue color. These guys have a yellow. Just a little fun fact. So, this is what their eye looks like. Important sense. And if I open it up,
Oh gosh. Yeah.
see that all that dark in there? No, we can't look at this one. Can you guys move? Hold on to my eyeball.
This is like almost
Hold on. So there's a black in there. You guys can see that? Like,
Yes, they're not true, but it's part of its cartilage. So you can see they're softer than bones. They're still pretty hard.
Alright, that dark color in there,
And we'll get to that in a second.
that's called the tapetum lucidum. And it's the same structure that the cat might have. So it reflects light back into their eye in the dark, allowing them to see at night. I don't recommend opening up your cat's eyeball. Probably likes his eye. Now, you see this little thing in here? This little marble shape? That's their eye lens. So if you think like a human eye, of course you can see. A human eye's got that optic fluid that's sitting there to hold our eyes tight. Well, in the water, they need something with a little more structure to be able to hold that eye solid. So this is their eye lens. And often what we'll find, yeah, you can touch it. Yeah. So often what we'll find is a lot of fish islands in their stomach. So if they've eaten other sharks or if they've eaten other fish, we'll find these harder parts because they take a while to digest. Did you get one for the Ray?
It's kind of small.
It's a small eye. Doesn't make it any less important. Alright. So Matt's already opened up the brain for his Ray. So he'll talk about that while I open up the brain of the shark.
Sure. So you can see, relative to humans, the brains of rays and sharks aren't that big. But relative to fish, they're actually pretty big. That's because they have a lot of sensory organs. As Emma was mentioning earlier, this ampulla of Lorenzini, they literally can sense things in the water without even seeing them. But you can see here, it's relatively, it's not as big as a human's brain, but it's still not super small. You guys might consider it small, but You can see here, it's basically all this parts right here. So bigger than a fish, but definitely smaller than a mammal. And I could probably
You know
pop
what?
it out here.
Once our father caught a tuna, and he ate the eyes and the brain.
Really?
Cool. We'll get there eventually. All right.
Small.
Yeah. So this is what makes this ray think.
So one thing I forgot to point out before I open this up is there's these two little dots right there. They're kind of hard to see now, but there's these two dots. They're called their endolymphatic cords, which is a fancy way of saying their inner ear. So if you saw those two dots right there, they connect down into their inner ear. So I'll go ahead and preface this and say that I don't study brains, but most of the brain for a shark is for their senses, right? They don't really need to have cognitive thinking like humans do. They've got all these crazy sensory things going on, so they need to spend most of their brain power to that. So if I recall correctly, there's up front are their olfactory bulbs, so they can help them smell. This right here is for spatial recognition. There's the cerebellum back here that's more for movement. And then moving back here, we also kind of have connection for that that lateral line, and moving back into the ears like I mentioned. So I'll go ahead and pop this guy out. And that's a shark's brain. You want to see the brain? So a lot of that is for spatial movement and recognizing where they are in the water. Yeah, go home and say you touched a shark brain. Cool. See, they're not mindless killing machines.
One time we caught this fish in our crab trap, and then we cut it open.
All right. I think that's about all that we've got for you guys today, unless you guys think of anything else we haven't touched on. So we're really interested in getting some feedback from y'all, so we'd love to hear from you guys. We've got some anonymous cards if you'll fill them out. It'll also enter you to win a raffle in 15 minutes for one of these beautiful hats that hasn't been covered in shark blood yet. So feel free to come ask us more questions up here, but we'd love to get some feedback. So thank you guys. Yeah, I'm touching that. Yay, brain!